Okay, again, welcome everyone to Happy Math Hour, weekly interactive sessions for Math 1324 and Math 1314, presented by our instructors, Ms. Chuka, Mr. Carizales, and Mr. Albert Isasi. Today's session would be our introductory session, and the session will be recorded so that you may review it at a later date, and so that others that have missed out on today's event will be able to watch it. For now, please mute your mics for the best sound experience. Otherwise, feedback could interfere with the information being shared today. And without further ado, this is let's have Ms. Chuka. All yours, ma'am.
Ms. Chuka said she needs just a moment. So while we wait, real quick, I wanted to share with everyone our upcoming TVEs. So if you join us next week, Friday at 1 p.m., we'll be having Learning Online with Blackboard by Distance Learning. And then at 3 p.m., we'll have yet another Happy Math Hour, and it'll be Evaluate Combination of Functions and Composite Functions. So be sure to check us out next week. And then I will go ahead and go back to the PowerPoint real quick. There we go. And so today's session is on navigating your Webassign and your Mymathlab courses, as well as graphs of equations and writing equations. Oh no, it looks like Ms. Chuka jumped out. All right, no worries there. So these are the different courses. Webassign has NCBM 0114, NCBM 0314, and Math 1314. And then Mymathlab is NCBM 0124 and NCBM 0324, as well as Math 1324. All right, Ms. Chuka is still not back yet. Hopefully she comes in a minute. So while you wait, at the beginning of your semester, your instructors are probably going to end up giving you their class codes, and you'll be entering a class key here. Mr. Isasi, would you care to help me out a little?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, hello, students. My name is Mr. Isasi, and for this for the first 3 weeks, it's going to be combined because all the material is related to both 1324 and 1314. And then after the third week, on the fourth week, is when we separate to two different sections, the 1314 and the 1324. I do the 1324, and Ms. Yvette Chuka and Ruben Carizales, they present the 1314. Okay, now, so let's continue here. Let me see here. Okay, so this is for the Webassign. This is for the 0314 and also for the 1314. So after you enter the key, okay, you're gonna see. Let me see here. Okay, this is where you. This is the page that you see here. Okay, after you enter the key, then you can enroll yourself. Okay, so for example, here it says you are not currently listed in any courses. Okay, so after that, after you enter the key, you have to, let me see. I don't have access to the PowerPoint here. Yeah, you can enter your EPCC, this ID, you get it from your instructor. Okay, so once you enter that, you're gonna see, can I go to the next slide, please? This is what you will see. Welcome to Math 1314. And then you're gonna hit here, register an access code. So here's where you hit the code. If you purchase a new textbook at the EPCC bookstore, the access code is included. Okay, but you don't need to purchase the book if you don't want to. You can purchase just the code. With the code, you get the ebook. Can I please go to the next slide? Okay, now ready to purchase the access code. So here, either you have an option to buy it for $119, which is the unlimited, or buy it for $100. The unlimited, I believe it's a bit of bargain because you get more for like $20 more. Okay, so let's see here. So you get the digital version of the textbook. You textbook rentals is for $7.99 plus shipping and returns. And there's more benefits, like I said, for the unlimited version. Can I go to the next slide, please? Okay, now here's where you open the course. Once you're here, you're gonna hit this this key here or the option, and you can have 7 to 14 days. 14 days free trial. So once you log in the first day of class, you can have 14 days if you choose to go that route. But you can pay for the access code right there and then. I believe it's better to pay it right there and then if you have the money, because you need to purchase a code anyway. So you click here to open the course.
Mr. Azasi, Ms. Chuka is back if you'd like her to take over.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Ms. Chuka. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Albert. I was having some problems connecting the actual laptop. But well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And so the first part of the session is just going over some of the Cengage. Okay, let me see. Hold on. Can you hear me there? Can't hear. Okay.
Ms. Chuka, we can't hear you very well. I apologize.
Can you hear me?
A little better, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is that better? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am. If you could be a little closer, I guess, to your mic, maybe it'd be a little better.
How about there?
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so and I'll try to talk louder too. So I'm gonna go over the Cengage, Webassign, and the Mymathlab really quick, and then we'll get into some actual problems that you've been covering all week. Okay, so let's continue here. Once you sign up for Webassign, then you're gonna click on Courses. And after courses, you have options to purchase your access code. You do have 14 days free trial, but the 14 days start counting from when the instructor makes the course and not when you sign in. So when you sign in and register, it might be left with like 10 days or 12 days. So just be careful on that. One of the things that you can do here is change your password by clicking here. And then you can also see all your courses by clicking here. And then you have the rental options. If you're the type of student that you prefer to have an actual hard copy of your textbook, you can actually rent a copy, and they will send that to you. Here, if you click on this symbol, it's just going to open up some other information if you purchase that unlimited option that Mr. Isasi was talking about. And then here, where the graduation cap is, you can look at videos that will talk about test taking skills, time management, and so on. So these are all optional and free for you. Once you're in your actual course, one of the things that I want to highlight here is if you prefer to have all these tabs in Spanish, maybe you prefer Spanish, then you just click here and you can select your Spanish language. And for example, here it changed all the titles to Spanish. Now this one here, I highly recommend. If you click on the notifications, if your instructor changes the due date or makes an announcement, it will send it to your email that you registered with. And then also you can have a reminder for your due dates. Okay, you're gonna find your ebooks. And so you should have your ebooks here if you click on that button. And then for communication, you can send your instructor messages through here if they have it activated. And then of course your grades, you can see your grades here. And then your assignments, which is where you're going to find everything that you have to do for that class. I want to highlight on the right side of your page, you're going to see something called class insights. And these are just so that you can, if the computer kind of will target items that you need more help with. So you can explore these. Some of the instructors will send announcements, so they'll appear in the middle part of your web page. And then you'll have a calendar that's available as well. Okay, on the left side, you'll have all your homeworks. If you see these little symbols here, some of them are password protected, some you need a lockdown browser. And so make sure that you check these out because some are requirements before you can access a different assignment. And then you have resources. If you click on this tab, your instructor might have put resources such as more videos or PowerPoints here. Now the study plan is a place that you can go to. It lets you take a practice quiz, and then it'll let you do a tutorial. And all of that is just for extra practice. And then of course you have your assignments here. So this one's password protected, and this one you must complete the previous assignment before you can start on the next one. And then you have, if you see this symbol, it means that there's a lockdown browser. For the most part, most of us do use the lockdown browser. So you want to make sure that your computer has the right download so that you can access that assignment. Okay. And then of course, if you see this symbol, that's going to be your timer that you have left for that assignment. When you're actually in the assignments, you have some different things available for you. You'll see some questions have the read it and the watch it. And so in other ones, you'll see this symbol here, Ask Your Instructor. So for me, I love that symbol. I love when my students click on this because then they can ask me questions. And the beautiful thing about it is when you click on it and you ask me a question, it's going to give me the problem that you're working on. Okay, so that was just a glimpse of Webassign for the Mymathlab students for 1324. Let's go over that, and then in a little bit we're going to actually get into some math problems. So for you guys, you would click on the student, and then you're going to need three things. You're going to need a course ID, and this is going to be given to you by your instructor. You're going to need an email address, and then you're going to need an access code or a credit card to pay. So you would enter your course ID in here, and the course ID usually will be like your instructor's last name with some numbers. Once you enter that ID, you're going to sign in for Mymathlab. If you already have an account, you just sign in. If you don't, then you would create an assignment. Not an assignment, an account. Okay, so for your access code, they do give you options. If you feel that you don't need the second part of the course, then you can pay the $70. If you feel like you need at least 2 years to complete the sequence, then you would pay the $100. If you don't have an access code, the access code comes with a textbook if you buy it at our bookstore. If you buy it online, just make sure that it comes with the access code, because sometimes students will buy a book online and spend $100 on the book, and then they realize it doesn't have an access code, and you're still going to have to buy that access code. You can't press on the get temporary access without payment for 14 days. Okay, so let me see, there's a question in the chat. So let me just check that question. So if a student submits a question on the Ask Your Instructor, it really depends on the instructor and how fast they are responding. For me personally, what I like to do is I like to check them every day, and then I respond to them before the day ends. So I usually tell my students the fastest way to actually get help from me is going to be to take a picture of the problem that you're working on and then use the Remind app and send it to me, and it comes straight to my cell phone as a text message, and then I can reply to it right away. So once you enter that, then you're going to be done and you're ready to go into your course. And so you would enroll in your course. And so here you're going to have a calendar and it tells you that there's an announcement, that there's homework, that there's quizzes. You're going to have a multi-library media where you can get PowerPoints and videos and other resources. You also have a study plan where you can practice extra problems. And then you have some other resources here. You have some PowerPoints and the ebook and so on. And then they have some mindset videos. And so these mindset videos are good because they kind of help you to, go through like the growth mindset. And then you're also going to have some of the study skills videos as well, like time management, stress management, and so on. And then you have some professional tools, like if you're trying to practice an interview for a job, then these give you some hints for that as well. Okay, so then the last one is just different resources that you can use, like how to use your calculator and so on, and so forth. Now, when you're in the actual assignment, here you're gonna see a question help, and you can try these right here. Sometimes your instructor might shut these down, but check here to see what's available for you. The help me solve this will walk you through the problem, and then it'll give you a chance to do it on your own. The view an example is just a similar example, and then you have the ask your instructor as well. If you use the help me solve this, notice that it's going to count your question wrong because it's helping you solve it. But then once you're done with that, it gives you one that you do by yourself, and then it'll give you the check mark. The view and the example just gives you a similar problem. And then you have videos here that you can go through as well. Now the videos are, you can actually put the captions in English or Spanish. So that's a choice that you have there. And then the ebook is really nice because you have all the videos next to all the objectives. So if you just want to see a video on number 3, you will just press the little play sign here. Okay, so those were just some overviews on the 2 softwares that we're using. And so for the rest of the time today, we're going to actually do some examples of what you might be seeing in your classes this week. And so we're going to look at graphing and then transformations of graphs. And then towards the end, we'll look at writing equations. Oops, let me go back. And at any time, if you have a question, please just put it in the chat. So here we want to graph the equation y equals -2x plus 5. There's many ways to graph these equations, but the first method is going to be the point plotting method. And so basically our x variable we say is the independent variable, so you are allowed to choose any value you want for x. You could pick 1,000, 500, anything you want. The suggestion though is to pick values that are kind of small to work with, but also you want to make sure you have some negative values, some positive values, and you always want to make sure you can use 0 as well. So normally I like to use these 5 numbers right here. Okay. So what we do is, since we're picking what x is, in this case x is -2, then we're going to substitute it in for the x. And then we're going to evaluate what our y value is going to be. So for the first one, I would substitute my -2 for my x. So -2 times -2 is 4, plus a 5 would give me the 9. So that means that when x is -2, my y is equal to 9. And we can write this as an ordered pair of -2 and 9. So these ordered pairs is what we're going to graph so that we can sketch the line. So then we would go to -1, plug it in for the x. So -1 times -2 plus 5 is going to give us 7. Okay, so my ordered pair would be -1 and 7. So so if we do the next one 0, then we'll see that we get 0 and 5. Okay, and then we keep doing the same process. If I plug in the 1, then I get a -2 plus 5 is 3. So y is equal to 3. And then for the 2, I plug it in. -2 times 2 is -4, plus 5 is going to be that 1. Okay, so this right here should be 2 and 1. Okay, so then we plot the points, -2 and 9, -1 and 7, and so on. Mr. Garcia, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. How's my audio, actually?
It's great.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, professors and students. Yeah, so I actually have 3 questions. I'm sorry. I don't know if this is a good time.
Okay.
First question is, out of all the options available on Webassign in regards to solving any particular problem, which do and do not penalize when you utilize them?
Give me a second. My mic is acting up. So you're say your question again one more time. I'm sorry.
Certainly, no problem. So the question is, for example, on a homework assignment or on any other, for example, a quiz or an exam, I imagine, out of all the options that are available and some of the ones you actually described, which do and do not penalize when you utilize them to solve when you finish the any particular homework, quiz, or exam?
Yeah, so it doesn't really penalize you. It just doesn't like, so for example, if you say help me solve this, it's gonna count it wrong because it's helping you, but it's not gonna penalize you because it gives you another problem. And once you work that problem out, then it gives you the check mark or whatever grade for. If you can't get it out, then it'll count it wrong. But if you get it correct, they'll change the X back to a check mark. So none of them really penalize you unless you just don't go back and try the problem again.
Understood. So just to make sure I understand. So if I say to assist to solve, it will just jump over to a different problem altogether. And if I solve that one, and let's just say theoretically, if I get all of the rest correct, it will still give me 100.
Yeah, it would give you 100 if you get them all correct after you try it once you use the help button.
Great,
But
thank
you
you.
have to work it out. Hmm.
Okay, yes, I imagine this would still have to be solved correctly. Great. My next question was when you were touching as far as on utilizing Remind. I did notice that on some of the responses that you were requesting, um, you were indicating for you to use, for example, like an email or a Blackboard messaging to be able to respond on something in particular. I won't say what it is because I know it's something that's embedded in the videos. But would you prefer? Because I noticed that on the syllabus it indicated that emails were particularly for emergencies mostly. Would you prefer responses such as those to be directed towards messaging on Blackboard or the Remind app?
Yeah, if you use the Blackboard Messenger, which is an email system basically in Blackboard, then that is fine. You can email me there as much as possible, right? The Remind is fine. My regular APCC email, the only reason I put that it's for emergencies is because that email, like I get emails from work related stuff, and so your email might actually, I will answer all the Blackboard messages first before I start answering the one from the epcc.edu email. So basically, for faster response, as I stated in the syllabus, it's best to stick with the Blackboard messages or through the Remind.
Okay, so I'll just stick to either one of those two. Thank you. Yes, because I imagine that on the email, I don't want. I would imagine as a professor, you don't want emails from your students getting lost in the jumble or in the mix with administrative emails. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's just faster, and like my focus is on you guys, and I would rather just be able to respond to all of you there because it's much quicker.
All right, thank you. And just one last one. I was wondering, I don't know if we will have time today, but there was actually a particular problem on homework for section 1.3. It was it was finding parallel and perpendicular lines and
I
getting
think
up.
I
Go ahead.
do have an example of that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because going from general form over to I believe it's point slope form. I know there was one particular problem where it was starting to get into fractions. And again, I haven't done fractions in a good long while. And just being able to, I was wondering if not so much maybe a go around, but maybe what your best method is to be able to quickly find a common denominator to be able to add two fractions that don't match up just a little bit quicker. Maybe some particular technique that you use to be, instead of having to multiply over and over and over again to try to find something that will match so you can add those two together. That would be great.
Sure, we can definitely do that when I get to that part.
Okay, certain. Thank you so much for the answers.
Hmm.
That was all for me. Thank you.
All right. So once you have all your points plotted, then you would just connect them all with a line. And then just something that is important here when you're selecting your line, make sure that you're using the one with the arrows. Okay. All right. So let's go to try another one. So here we would do the same thing, right? We want to plot in the x values. And for the x, so 5 minus negative 2 squared is going to be 4. So 5 minus 4 is a 1. And then the order pair is going to be negative 2, negative 1. And then if we keep doing the same thing, negative 1 squared is 1. So we have 5 minus 1 is going to give me a 4. And then for 0, we would get the 5 and so on. So if we plot these points, then we can see that we're going to end up with a parabola. So as the weeks go in the semester, you'll be able to look at this equation and you'll be able to say, I know what this should look like. And so that will give you an idea of what your graph, if you're doing it correctly. Now, the second way to graph a line is using the intercept method. And so if you can focus on this method, you're going to use it all semester. But basically, the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. And notice that the value for x is always going to be a 0. And then the x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis, and your y value is always going to be a 0. So you want to remember that for the y-intercept, the x is 0, and the x-intercept, the y is 0. And the reason I say to remember that is because it's going to help you to solve questions. So for example, here, if we want to find the x-intercept, we let the y equal 0. So here my y is 0. And then I solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. And I get -5 equals -2x. Divide by -2. And so I get -5 divided by -2 will be a +5/2. And that's going to be my x-intercept. Now for the y-intercept, we let x equal 0. So -2 times 0 is 0 plus 5 is going to be 5. And so to graph a line, that's all that we need is 2 points. So I have my point here and my point here, and then I can graph my line. So for a line, it's okay to only have 2 points. But for anything that's not a line, and that's going to be when the x has an exponent of a 2 or higher, then you're going to need to add additional points. Okay. So now we're going to start getting into what Mr. Garcia was asking about, right? And so the last part in section 1.3 is going to ask you to write equations of a line. And so you have something called the general form, which looks like this, ax plus by equals c. We have the point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m. M stands for your slope, x minus x1, and then you have the y-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So again, the m is your slope, and b represents your y-intercept. And when you're writing equations of a line, there's always 2 things that you need. You need to have a slope, or a way to find it, and then you need to have a point. If you have the y-intercept, then it's even better. But if you don't have a y-intercept, then you need at least 1 point, okay? So here it says, write the equation of a line with slope f 4, y-intercept 5. So one of the things I like to highlight is anytime you're asked to write the equation of a line, then you want to think about y equals mx plus b. And then think about, okay, if I know the slope and if I know the b, the y-intercept, then I'll be able to answer this question, right? And so here they tell me that the slope is 4. So I'm going to write m equals 4. And then they tell me that the y-intercept is 5. So I can write it in this form. And so all we have to do now is plug it in. Oops, let me go back. So here I have my y. My m is 4. So I have my x. And then my b was 5. So that's going to be your equation. So that was pretty straightforward. It has the slope. It has the y-intercept. But then they start looking different, right? It says write the equation of a line with slope -2 that passes through the point 0, -4. So in this situation, they're telling you that the slope is -2, so that's your m. And is there anything special about this point? Can anybody tell me what that's special, why this point is special? And if you like, you can just type it in the chat or open your mic. So why is this point special?
It should already be providing you the y-intercept, which would be the
Right.
final number in the equation.
Right, so this is, since the x is 0, then this is telling you, that this -4 is going to be your b, okay? And so if we plug it into our equation, so we already know the slope and we know the y-intercept. Oh, I already skipped it. Sorry, let me go back. So my answer here would be y equals 2x, and then our b is 4. So remember, if it helps, you can always write down the point slope, the slope-intercept form of the line. So here you have your m and you have your y-intercept. But then it keeps getting different, right? So now they give me 2 points. So they don't tell me that the slope is equal to something. But the question is, do we have enough information? And the answer is yes, right? So to find the slope, we use the formula y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And so we can call these x1, y1, x2, y2. So I would end up with y2, which is 4, minus y1, which is negative 3, divided by x2, which is 0, and x1 is 1. So negative, negative is going to be a positive. So 4 plus 3 is 7. And then 0 minus 1 is negative 1. 7 divided by negative 1 is negative 7. So that would be my slope. And the y-intercept, they do give it to me. And I can recognize that it's the y-intercept because the x is 0. So if I graph it now, my slope is negative 7 and my b is 4. So this would be my equation. So, but now it gets a little bit trickier, right? I still have 2 points. Is this my y-intercept? What do you guys think? Does that look like a y-intercept?
No, ma'am. What x-intercept?
That's our x-intercept, right? Since the 0 is not taking place of x, then we cannot use this as our y-intercept. But we can still use it to find our slope, which would be 4 minus 2 is 2, and negative 1 minus 0 is negative 1, so we get the negative 2. Now for the y-intercept, we don't have it, but we're going to have enough information to find it. And there's really 2 ways to do it. You can use this, the point slope formula, or you can use the slope intercept form. So I believe I work it out both ways. So all you have to do is choose one point. You can choose this point or this point. I'm going to choose the 2, 0. And if I use this formula, I'm going to have y minus y1. So remember my y1 was 0. And then my slope, we just found it, was negative 2. And then I have x minus x1, which is 2. It wouldn't matter if I used negative 1 and 4. At the end, I would still get the same answer. So if we simplify, negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So this would be my equation, okay? So that's one method. The second method is to use the slope-intercept form. And so we would have, in this method, we would treat the y is our 0, my slope is negative 2, and then my x is a 2. And essentially what you're doing here is solving for b. So negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, and then I'm going to add the 4. So I get 4 is equal to b. So here, now we know what b is, so I can just plug it in. My slope was negative 2, and my b is 4. So we end up with the same thing. So the videos will be available in YouTube, and we will send a link to that as well. And I'll try to slow down for you guys. Okay, I'll slow down on the next examples. So here it says write the equation. So thank you for the feedback, because that's how we can improve here. So write the equation of the line that is parallel to the line y equals negative 2x plus 4 and passes through the point. Okay. So first, what you want to do is, since it's asking you to find the equation of a line, then the first thing you want to do is, for me, I always like to write down the slope-intercept form, because it reminds me that I need 2 things. I need the slope, and I need at least 1 point. Okay, so if we look at the problem, I can see that they give me 1 point. So I'm going to write it here, negative 3 and 4. And so I'm missing the slope. Okay, so what's going on here is, let me just draw a picture of what's happening here. They have this line of y equals negative 2x plus 4. So here's my 4. And then let me just draw the line. Okay, so this is the line y equals negative 2x plus 4. And what the question is saying is, okay, we have this line that's in red, and we want you to find another line that is going to pass through negative 3 and 4 that is parallel. Oops. So, okay, so I didn't mean to draw that big line. I'm not sure how to erase it, but okay, thank you. So here is my point, right? So the line that we're going to want is going to be parallel, which means that it's going to look something like this. So the only thing we know about this line right now is this point negative 3, 4. This one here, okay? So we want to write the equation for it, and the only thing we know is this point, and then we know that it's parallel. So by definition, if they tell you that a line is parallel, then that means that these two lines will have the same slope. Okay, so since it has the same slope, then for our red line, the equation for the red line is y equals negative 2x plus 4. So if we look at that red line, what is my slope for this line? And you guys can throw it in the chat if you like. So what is the slope for y equals negative 2x plus 4? Negative 2. Okay, so my slope for the red line is a negative 2. Okay, so that means that for the green line, we're also going to use a negative 2 because they have to keep the same slope. Okay, so once you figure out what that slope is for the line that you want, and then you have your point, then this first equation, we no longer need it. Okay, so I'm going to just clear the page here. And actually, let me go. Okay, I have already said that. Okay, so now that we have that we're going to use the same slope and it passes through this point, then you have two options, right? And so I'm going to go over the first option. So here in your point that they give you, let me just get a different color. You can call this point x1 and y1, and remember your m is right here. So in this general equation, we're going to substitute those values. So we have y minus y1, and we said y1 is 4, so I'm going to put a 4. And then I have m, which is negative 2. And then I have x minus x1, which is negative 3. And so if we simplify, then a negative and a negative right here is going to be a positive, so we get x plus 3. And then we're going to distribute that negative 2 into the parentheses. So we're going to have negative 2 times x gives me a negative 2x, and 2 times 3 gives me a negative 6. So my next step is to add a 4 on both sides. Okay, so we're going to add a plus 4 here and a plus 4 here. So the 4's will become a 0. And so negative 6 plus 4 is going to be negative 2. Okay, so this is going to be your equation of that green line that I drew earlier. But a different method, so again, I do two methods because then it's up to each of you to decide which method is easier for you. So the second method, you can call this x and y. So the y here would be a 4. Your slope is negative 2. Your x is negative 3 plus b. So negative 2 times 3 is positive 6. And then if we subtract negative 6, we get b is equal to negative 2. So you know your b and you know your m. So the last step is to substitute those values. So m is negative 2 and b is negative 2. Okay, so you see we can get the same answer. Okay, so write the equation of a line that is perpendicular. So now it's a little bit different because it doesn't say parallel. Now it's saying perpendicular. Okay. So for perpendicular, the line that we're looking for is always going to have a negative reciprocal of the slope of that line. Okay. So what that means is when we're looking for this red line. Okay. So they give us this black line, and the line we're looking for is the red one, and we only have this point available. And the reason they're perpendicular is because it forms a right angle at this line. Okay. So in order to find the slope, we're still going to need to know what m is, and we cannot use m equals -2, because then that would be parallel if we use the same slope. So first, let me talk about what reciprocal means. If you have the number 4, then the reciprocal, and actually let's make it a fourth. If you have the number 1/4, the reciprocal of that is basically going to be 4/1. So we're flipping the fraction. Okay. If you had the number -1/3, then the reciprocal would be -3/1. Okay. So, but the problem here is for perpendicular, it's a negative reciprocal. Okay. So whenever you see the word negative reciprocal, we kind of work it out the same way. Let's go back to that 1/4. So now, since we have the word negative, I would add a negative here. And then I have the word reciprocal. Well, the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4/1. So my reciprocal would be a -4. So you're basically changing, if you start with a positive number, the negative reciprocal is going to be negative. If you start with a negative number, let's try -1/3. Then we would write that negative. Oops. Give me a second. We would write the negative here. And then you would get the reciprocal of this number, which is -3. So what is negative times negative? It will come out as positive. So if you notice here, you started off with a negative, and then we ended up with a positive. So since it tells us perpendicular, then we're going to need to find the reciprocal, the negative reciprocal. So if our slope was -2, as we have it for the black line, so that's our slope for the black line, then the negative reciprocal would be a negative of a -1/2. So negative is going to be positive. Okay, and so that's why we're going to use m is equal to 1/2. So now we have the necessary two things. We have your point and you have your slope. So after you have those two things, then this is where we use the point slope, or we use the slope intercept form. So let's go ahead and try that. So I'm going to have y minus 4. So remember, the 4 is coming from here. I'm calling this x1, y1. And so my y1 is 4. So I plug it in. My slope is going to be a 1/2. And then I have x. And then I have x1, which is a -3. Negative times a negative is positive. And before I continue, in the survey for today, you're going to need to sign in if you want credit for your instructors to give you points for, well, some instructors require tutoring. And so if they're going to count this, they probably already talked to you about it. For my students, for example, I do give you 1 point a week for attending, right? And so in the survey you're going to fill out in a moment, it's going to ask you for, one of the questions says, what is the Happy Math Hour code? And you're going to enter the word ready. Okay. So just write that down on your paper. You're going to need to enter that word in there, and that's how we know that you were here today. Okay, so let me go back to the problem. So negative is going to be positive. And so we get y minus 4 is equal to 1/2 x plus 3. And 1/2 x plus 3. And then we're going to distribute that half. So we have y minus 4 is equal to 1/2 x plus 3/2, because we multiplied 1/2 times 3 to get 3/2. Then we're going to add the 4 over. Okay, so we're adding the 4. And so now I need to add 3/2. I'm going to write it here. 3/2 plus 4. So the problem here is that we can't add these if they don't have the same common denominator. And so what I like to think about is that the 4, that I have it as 4 divided by 1, which is just 4. And then I need to find a common denominator. So if I look at the 2 and the 1, some of the problems you can see, like if you had a 2 and a 4, then you can see the common denominator would be 4. But if you have some, like a 13 and a 12, and you're trying to figure out what common denominator is, one quick way is just to multiply the denominators. In this case, 2 times 1 is 2, and that can be your common denominator. And so if you had 20 and 3, if you multiply them, you can get a 60, although 20 would be the smallest one. But if you're ever stuck, you can just multiply those denominators, and that can be your common denominator. Now the trick here, it's not really a trick, but the issue here is, since 2 is a common denominator, notice that this already has a 2, so I can just write down the 3 because I don't need to do anything to it. But over here, instead of a 2 and the 1, I have a 1. So I need to multiply this 1 times the 2 to get this 2 down here. But if I do that to the denominator, I also have to do it to the numerator. And the reason I can do this is because 2 divided by 2 is just a 1. So it doesn't change the problem. It's just changing the way the problem looks. So now I can say 4 times 2 is 8. Okay. And notice now that the denominators are the same. So since they're the same, I keep the denominator and I add 8 plus 3, which is 11. Okay, so if we simplify this, then we would have y equals 1/2 x plus 11/2. In a little bit, we can do another one, Mr. Garcia, that is similar to what yours has. And I know I went a little fast today, and I think it was just the me getting here and having this connection problems. I felt like, oh my goodness, we started off late. But we do have 10 minutes that we can use to go back and cover in some more in detail. And then also, let me just put a link here. Let me see. To show the link, because what's going to happen is these videos will be available for people to watch as well. Miss Patricia, did you put the link already to sign in? Or do you need me to put it?
No, it's in the chat right now. There's a sign in link to sign in.
Okay, I see it. Okay. So, do you know in the video, does people get to see the sign-in sheet? I mean, do people in the video see the chat also? Do you know, Miss Patricia, in the videos, does the chat come out or no?
No, ma'am. You will not be able to see the chat in the videos.
Okay, so let me just put this here really quick. And then I'll be open to answer any questions you might have, maybe from your assignments. Okay, so let me just stop share for a second so I can share something else. Okay, so that was the link to sign in. that was put on the chat. So let me just zoom in a little bit. That way it's a little bit more easy to see. And the reason I'm doing this is just in case we have people that want to see it later. Okay. All right. So what happens now is since we have 8 minutes, I can stay here and answer any questions you have. I'm happy to also say, which I think is very good opportunity, is we do have some available tutors that can also go into another room with you and answer any questions you might have on a more one-to-one basis. And so if you do need extra help with your assignments or you have questions, then you can just stay here and we'll be able to put you into a different room and give you more help with any questions you might have. If you have any general questions, this would be the time to ask. We do have these sessions every Friday at 3. And the idea of the session is this. We are here to cover what we think are the hardest topics of that week. We're hoping that students have already looked at whatever your instructors have provided for you, whether it's videos or PowerPoints, or maybe you went to class. And so then you're coming in here to kind of get those extra examples that we think are the hardest. But at the same time, at the end of the session, you can stay here and we can help you with any other questions you might have. Mr. Garcia?
Yes, thank you. I just had one quick question for your particular class. Just to confirm, it's just a survey, not the sign-in sheet, or both?
Yeah, the sign-in sheet is the survey. So it's the same thing.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Miss Atkins?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was wondering what the code was for the sign-in.
So in question, I think it's question number 4, it's going to ask for a code, like what is the code, and just put ready, the word ready. So let me share my screen. That way you can see what I'm referring to there. Let me open up the page first. That way you don't have to see everything. Oops. Well, I guess I can just click on the link there. So I'm going to click on the sign-in sheet. So when you sign in, it's going to ask you for your name, your email, your ID. And the reason we need those is because some teachers, like I mentioned earlier, are counting this as part of your tutoring grade that you have to have. Or in some instances, like me, I'm counting it as extra points for attending. And so if you don't have this student ID, or if you don't put your CRN, for example, right here, or your instructor's name, then it might be hard for us to contact your instructor. So we're providing the instructors a list of students who have attended happy hour. But if you don't provide that, then we're not going to be able to tell them you were here. So on question number 7, it says, enter the Friday happy hour code. And so you would just enter ready, and then that would be it. And then you can put any comments about today. So for example, I thank you for those of you that said I was going too fast. You can put any comments here, because then we read the comments and then we adjust our sessions based on the feedback that we're receiving. So for example, next time I'm going to go a lot slower. That way I can not lose, or so I don't go too fast, right? It doesn't matter. You can just put ready with a capital R or just lower R.
Thank you, Mr. Is there any other questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. As I said in the beginning of today's session, I'd like to invite you all to next Friday's presentations, Learning Online with Blackboard by Distance Learning at 1 p.m. And then again, Math Happy Hour once again on Friday at 3 p.m. to evaluate combination of functions and composite functions. We'd like to thank everyone for being here today. Y'all have been a great audience, and there are tutors standing by to assist you. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording, but if you have any questions, you can still ask them.